Hello everybody. This is Balaam Mage, and we're going to go over this character that I'm pretty much done playing. That's the way I've been doing 100% Delirious Fractured maps. So if you don't know what those are, we should show you real quick. We've got 3 different kinds of maps right now. 2 burial chambers in a canyon that we have made for fracturing, and what we do is we use fractured fossils as well as other fossils on them to make copies of those maps and then run only those. So when we do that, to make it worth it, we've got these 4 watchstones here that have Nemesis, Beyond. I actually have Rare Reflect, but I think I should have gone with Legion and Hunted Traders to make them worth quite a lot of money. They end up making maps like this that are mirrored, and then we run them with very, very big scarabs, and we just run them forever. We've been doing that for a few days. That's how you run fractured maps. However, these fractured, double Beyond, Nemesis imprinted, Beyond on the map device, Alva, Temple maps are very hard to run. There are not very many builds that can actually run it. So what we went with was a self-curse occultist. So this is a little bit more old school than all the aura stacking builds that have been done recently. And you can see our resistances actually look garbage. Technically I could have fixed this. A little bit of love on my rings and chest, just a little bit of garden crafting would have got me res capped, but the reality of the matter is that I have 2.4k life and 1.3k ES, and in tier 16 fractured double Beyond maps, it just doesn't matter if I'm res capped or not. If you get hit, you die. That's just how that works. So the idea of these sort of builds is mostly around my Shackles of the Wretch. So anything, any curse that is in it gets reflected on me, which means we have Temporal Chains, Enhance, Hex Touch, and Herald of Thunder. Could be a level 21. Never bothered to get it. Didn't need it. That means my Herald of Thunder hits things with Temp Chains, and that is reflected back at me. Then we're using obviously the Occultist Ascendancy for curse effect, as well as these curse effect nodes, these curse effect nodes, the extra curse there, and we've anointed Hexmaster. This brings us to actually 1 over the cap of curse effectiveness we need, which is a total of 175% increased effective curse. The reason this is the cap is because Headhunter buffs are capped no matter what at 80 seconds, and that is how much curse effectiveness you need to get to 80 seconds with a Solstice Vigil on. So that's what we've got. So in order to make this work, you can see we've gone very light on the life. In fact, the only life nodes we've taken is the ones we need to get Inspired Learnings. We have 3 Inspired Learnings running right now, and the Headhunter. Both of our large jewels look the same: Explosive Force, Martial Prowess, and Storm's Hand. So we've got a bit of damage and attack speed, the 10% Fizzes extra Chaos, and the 10% Fizzes extra Lightning with 25% converted to Lightning. Those two 25% give us 50. We've got a Watcher's Eye that gives us 40% conversion. So we're 90% converted to an element. We just live with that. In the second one, we have the same ones: Martial Prowess, Storm's Hand, Explosive, and then we don't need more curse effect. So we've gone Eye to Eye and Repeater, I think is that, which were just the best damage mediums we could come up with, as well as some just raw damage. And actually this one's for our strength requirement because we're a little bit low on the strength. This is, if I gained 1 more level, it would get quite a bit more power, because you can see I've taken here so that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 notables. But if I was to get 1 more level, I could drop this for 3 points and pick up this for 4 points and get a lot of increased effect of my Herald, or I could go this way for even more mana reservation. And if I got 1 or 2 RMR jewels, I would be able to fit in another Herald, which would be very big for damage. Now, fortunately, all we really need for damage is just enough to get the map started. So this has been my favorite way to run fractured maps this league. And it's a little bit dodgy at the start of the map, but the entire map runs really, really well once you get started. So when I say dodgy at the front of the map, I do mean a little bit dodgy. So it's just a little tiny bit slow out the gate. You can see right now, we don't have any Headhunter buffs, so it's just a little weak. It's still able to clear packs. We get our first Headhunter buffs, and once we get Headhunter buffs, it starts to just really, really pick up very easily. Now we're at 9. We're pretty much immortal. We'll already be res capped here. We've got now 5,000 energy shield, right? And now we get to power siphon through the entire map, which is probably my favorite wand skill. It is just absolutely gross for coverage. We are using chain in it. I will update the path of build. I'll upload the path of building here to YouTube as well, but it just continues like this the entire map. You slowly ramp up to between 80 to 120 Headhunter buffs, which is the Headhunter buff and the 3 inspired learnings at about, you know, roughly 100 stacks for most of the map, although it takes a little while to wind up to that. But as you can see, we're immortal for the entire map. It's only the beginning right out of the bat. I occasionally still lose a map or still die at the front of a map. In my current level of gear, definitely if I got that one more level and fit a Herald in, it would go really, really, really well, because that would increase my damage by another like 30 or 40%, which would be huge, which is all we need. So this has been my favorite way to run fractured maps this league. It runs about a quarter of the cost, if not less, from the cold Blade Vortex build that Grimro's been running. Although I think his build is better for running fractured maps, it does cost 4 times as much, and I just wasn't willing to put in that sort of effort. I would say head to toe, not counting the Headhunter, I've spent about 150 exalts on the build. So it is still rather pricey, but when you make a profit of 4 to 6 exalts per map, it definitely pays for itself if you can afford to do it. So we're not going to make it into a build guide because it's out of the price range of most people's build guides. But what I will do is I will upload at least 3 different versions of the path of building. The stage I'm at right now, the stage I would be at were I to invest a little heavier, and the baby version, the earliest stage in which it was useful. The biggest price problem other than the Headhunter is definitely our wand, which you can see my wand is 534 physical DPS. Quite beefy. We're going to quickly go over how to make that, because that's the thing I get the very most questions about. There's that Headhunter self-curse look we're all used to seeing, where you only get to see your feet. Very fun to play every now and then. Definitely wouldn't want to do it every league, but very fun to play. I've got 100,000 energy shield in this map right now. This build becomes immortal. So, wand. To make a wand like this, you have to start by buying Temple Affix imbued wands. So you want that hybrid Temple Affix, where it's 5% of Fizz's extra chaos and physical percent. And we're going to divide those to 165 and 5%, and then fracture prefix them until you hit one. Then you can quality it to 30% with fossils, and then you just spam jagged or corroded. I think it was jagged. Maybe it's corroded. We better double check that real quick. Physical. It's corroded. You just spam corroded fossils at it until you hit tier 1 flat, right? And then anything you can hybrid off it. Any prefix you can get rid of, right? Any prefix you can get rid of. And then you get rid of the prefix, you fill the suffixes, you org fizz to get any hybrid. Honestly, tier 6 or tier 7 hybrid is fine. If it was below that, I'd probably keep going at that stage. And then you re-roll suffixes, so re-roll keeping prefixes until you hit a decent attack speed. I would be happy with tier 3 or above. Craft regular critical strike chance, org crit to get crit multi, and then you can remove that craft, remove crit, put the craft back on org crit until you get a decent crit multi. At least tier 3 again would be fine. And then you craft critical strike chance and quality. As you can see, I still need to divine this one slightly. I could get a little more DPS out of it because my craft is only 15% quality and it should be 18. And then the last step, which you definitely don't have to do, is to buy the enchant things and spam them on it until you get physical modifiers have an 8% increased effect. You don't actually need that. I was running fine without it. The other important parts is that I've got elemental weakness on my Shackles of the Wretch. I've got frostbite on one of my rings, and I have Assassin's Mark on my other ring. It really didn't feel good until I got all of this. It is really important to remember that we just need to kill the first pack or two, and then we are immortal. So focusing on defenses is not something you really need to do. There is plenty of room for it. As you can see, I didn't get incredibly good rings because I just plain didn't need to. But there's room for a much better res roll there and a second res roll there. There's room for a much better res roll there and a second res roll there. I actually don't need power charges on my chest. This is just a chest I already had. But because I'm a Wander, I'm already generating power charges, so I didn't need that either. So there could have been another res. I also don't need chaos res, so that could have been another res slot. And we very easily could have crafted a rare helmet, which could have had room for res on it. Our shield has increased curse effect, very important. The spell damage is great because we turn that into attack damage, but again, it's got room for another res. So if you're worried about res, if not being res capped bothers you, there's plenty of room in the build to fix that. My assessment was that I would die regardless. So if I went in and face tank stuff, it wouldn't matter if I was res capped or not. I've got 2.4k life and 1300 ES. If I run in at the beginning and face tank a pack, I'm just going to die. So the answer was just do enough damage to kill the first pack or two. Headhunter makes you immortal, and then it lasts for the entire map. So this has been my favorite way to run it. I'm probably done running fractured maps now because I've just been doing it for a week and now it's a little boring and I want to try out some other stuff. I'm going to make an Inquisitor. But yeah, plenty of people were asking about it and too many people were asking how to craft the wand. So we've covered that. And that's about it for this build. Yeah, it's been a very, very fun build. I very much enjoyed it. It made a lot of money. It more than paid for itself. If I was to keep playing it for another week or two, you would get to the point where you're just buying mirrors every other day because there's nothing else to do. And it makes way too much money to run fractured maps. They're super juicy. But I think it's about time I pulled it apart and sold it and moved on. So that's probably what I'm going to do. I hope that was helpful for anyone who had questions about the curse build. And I will see everybody later. Goodbye.